It all comes down to this, a championship decider on the tight and twisting confines of the Zolder circuit. Welcome everyone to the Mobileye GT World Challenge Asia Esports Championship. My name is DJ Clark, joined here in the commentary booth by David Addison with our directors Mike Yao and Steve Proudly behind the scenes. And David, this Zolder circuit, well, it's a track that is notoriously difficult to pass on, which means that pit stop strategy, a good qualifying position, and tenaciousness are going to be highly rewarded here today.
And a good qualifying, DJ, absolutely essential, because if you can start up at the pointy end and keep everybody behind you, then you are a shoe-in for a good result. You're right, it is hard to overtake, it's narrow, there aren't that many easy opportunities, but if you make a mistake, this is one of those old school circuits which will bite. And I think come what may, we are in for a really interesting race here, because the pressure is going to be on. You've got to be absolutely millimetre perfect for the entire hour of this race.
Yeah, indeed you do, and let's also not forget about the millimeter perfect precision. You've got to really nail one of the trickiest pit entries in the world here. I would make an argument to do so. Those drivers are going to have to be on it, whether they're out on the circuit or coming in and out of pit lane. But before we get to that action, let's go ahead and run you through who we have here joining us today for this finale. There we look down the list of the drivers from Miraneko to Bahar, down to Presley Martano, Al Muhammad Ali, a name to keep an eye on, as is Fadli Rahman. As you can see, though, plenty of makes and models over the course of this entry list. Lots and lots of different cars going to be taking to this track, as they are wont to do. Dylan Tan there, one you're going to want to keep an eye on, as he is one of the drivers that is certainly in the mix for that Pro Championship.
And as far as the silvers are concerned, Filippo Bocchida has been the rather dominant driver there. But again, you're absolutely right, DJ, in what you say about the variety on the grid, because factor in the BMWs, the Bentleys, the Ferraris, all of which have their strengths at different parts of this Zolder circuit. And we are in for another really interesting battle within both of the classes. As far as the championship is concerned, it's Dylan Tan that heads pro. It is Filippo Bocchida yet to be beaten within silver. And so with a comfortable margin over Marco Wong and then Andrew O'Hara in the mix as well. Then you've got Terry Rayton as another driver to keep an eye to. So the championship 3 rounds in has been an interesting one, but Filippo Bocchida, certainly as far as silver is concerned, has proved to be the driver to beat.
Yes, she has, as we certainly continue to look through the standings there, going down through the order, and plenty of drivers that can be able to move their way up forward if things were to play themselves out here today. There, though, as we finish out those silver standings at the bottom, not a whole lot of points scored there for these drivers, so a single good performance on the day can really help to boost them up through the field. There in that pro standings, as we talked about, a very, very close running. Only 6 points separating Tier from Andika Rama Mulana, and that's really the battle that I'm going to keep my eyes on.
Andika Malana has got work to do to get back onto terms with Dylan Tan. They are so evenly matched, those two, and they've been sort of trading the wins and the second places between them. Neither has had a really bad race, and therefore neither has been able to steal a proper march over the other. We're talking about just 6 points between them, so it's a really tense championship fight. But come what may, we are in for a very interesting battle around this Zolder circuit, and traditionally it's a venue that seems to favour Audi or Mercedes, going back to real world GT3 racing. We'll see what we're in store for over the course of the next hour, with, of course, as ever, that mandatory pit stop.
Yes, indeed. And let's get to know this circuit just a little bit better by heading over to the Mobileye track guide, Ryan Houlihan, giving us a drive around the circuit, narrated by our very own Ryan Gill.
Welcome to your Mobileye track overview here at the circuit Zolder. Let's jump on board with Ryan Houlihan for a lap in the BMW M4 GT3. Heading down towards turn 1, you want to brake 30 metres before the banner above and turn in early to nail the apex and run right up to the gravel on the exit. Then brake just before the final Pirelli board on the right to take a nice wide exit through turn 2 and keep the car flat on the power as you go out of turn 3. You want to aim for the 2 escape lanes on the left-hand side of the circuit and take a nice clean line through turn 4, avoiding the gravel on the exit as you launch your way down the straight towards the first of 3 chicanes. Moving to the right-hand side of the circuit, brake at the final marker board on your right and cut as much of the chicane as you can handle without voiding track limits. Crest over the hill and hug the inside line of turn 6 and brake as soon as you reach the red and white banded barrier on the left. Turn in early and cut the chicane as much as possible, riding the anti-cuts if you can. Then go nice and wide on the exit and take a clean line through turn 8. Then you want to aim to keep to the left-hand side of the circuit as you brake around the 100-meter board for the sharp hairpin. That is turn 9. Get your foot on the power as early as possible and straight line the miniature chicane through turn 10. Then keep to the right as you look to brake around the 100-meter board again for the final chicane at turn 11. And this will lead you out onto the short run onto the main straight and back down towards turn 1.
Thank you again to Ryan Houlihan and Ryan Gill for providing the Mobileye track guide. And as we've been really hyping up, you can see there, David, just as you said, a narrow circuit. Not a lot of long straightaways to get that important slipstream. It's going to be a real treat to try to get by today.
It is, and a Mercedes of Dylan Tan to start on pole position is going to take some stopping, because where there is a half-decent straight, one is the pit straight, the other you were just looking at a moment ago, coming onto the back straight, the exit of the Lucien Bianchi Bocht, that is where the grunt-and-go Mercedes is going to work. So Dylan Tan it is that will start on pole position. Ferris Stanley with him at the front of the grid. Philippa Bokida is going to line up third. And then that's another pole position within silver ahead of Marco Wong, who has been there or thereabouts all season, regularly in the top 3. He's going to start 4th. Ryan Houlihan is 5th, and Yat Lamlaw is going to start 6th ahead of Zach Smith 7th, and then Fadli Rahmat, who will go from 8th on the grid. Then it's Andrew O'Hara. He's another front runner to start 9th out of the silver competition. And 10th on the grid is Dafa Nabil. 11th is from the pro class, I should say, the car of Kian Lee, and then the Sam Madison alongside him. Moreno Pratana comes next, and Andika Maulana starting only 16th on this grid. So that is rather bad news for the man that's had 1 race win and 2 second places. He's doing the chasing in the championship, but with Dylan Tan on pole and Maulana starting only 16th, the pressure is on him to make progress, isn't it?
Yeah, it certainly is. Going to have to try to work their way up through the field as quickly as possible. As we continue to look down through the field, you can see there some of the Bentleys. A little further back with Sang, Lau, Osaki, Pinata, Chan, Reyes, and Baldwin making out into the back of this 23-car grid. It is a little bit of a smaller grid than we've come to expect. We've sometimes seen around 40 entries into this. And David, I've got to think that these drivers are a little bit happy to have a few fewer cars out there on the track.
Absolutely right, because not only is it going to be an issue in terms of a fight for position, but it could also be when you get to the purposes of having to think about Lapri as well, late race after the pit stops, where it gets very busy indeed. The last car on the grid, if it is there, is going to be number 138, which is from the silver class, and that is William Sunjoto's BMW. I say if, because that did not set a time. So let's just have a quick look and see as you get to the back of the grid. Number 7 should be there. Yes, it is, which is the Sergei Mironenko Laundry House Audi. And yes, William Sunjoto's BMW is there. So the grid is complete. Just about everybody is set for a race in which I would think you want to make a really strategic pit stop in this, don't you? Get out of the traffic, because potentially the traffic could be an issue for everybody for the race other than the race leader, who will ideally, Dylan Tan, be trying to get away and escape up the road.
Yeah, very true. You're going to have to be checking around you, using that crew that you have, your engineers behind the scenes, your strategists, to be able to figure out where you're going to lead out into traffic, even if it's only just a couple of seconds of clean air. That could be the difference of 1, maybe even 2, 3 positions to be able to get that right.
Well, looking down on this Zolder circuit, you can see the 2 chicanes. There's one at the very end of the lap, the so-called Jackie X Bocht, Jackie X corner, and the Kleiner chicane, the small chicane on that back straight, really put in there to try and slow the speed of the cars down before they head towards another chicane, the Villeneuve chicane. It was here that in 1982, Gilles Villeneuve lost his life in qualifying for the Belgian Grand Prix, a race won the following day by John Watson. And the Zolder circuit, with the lake running parallel to the first couple of corners in good beer territory. This So as we look down, the grid is formed. We are about a minute and a half, give or take, from the rolling lap getting underway. Pole position on the inside for the first corner, which is a left-hander. So Dylan Tan putting himself in the box seat. He focuses now on the job in hand. You've got to say, though, DJ, the way that he's gone this year, 2 wins and a second place out of the 3 races, with another one to go at the end of this, he's had a mighty impressive season.
Yeah, he really has. The AMG LOR driver just absolutely locked in, being able to stand on the podium every time. And as a driver, it's easy at this point to be able to fall back on your laurels a little bit, to be content with it. But seeing Tan up here at the top of the grid, it shows you just how locked in he is, and he wants to continue that, dare I say, dominance today.
Equally, in silver, you've got Filippa Bokida. You can argue even more dominant, because absolutely unbeaten. 3 wins out of 3 races. Even when you've spoken to her and she's been saying, well, you know, I'm not convinced that the car is going to be all that good for the next venue, it doesn't seem to matter at all, because still the wins come. She was a little bit downbeat before Bathurst, still took a class win. Okay, didn't have the pace to run for the outright lead, but that wasn't necessarily a problem, because it was points in class that she was after and managed to achieve.
Yes, exactly, and you hit the nail on the head. She was a little bit concerned about potentially running into some of the tire issues in that Porsche, and that's something we're going to be keeping our eye on here with Stanley and Bokida qualifying so far up. The tires tend to wear a little bit quicker in the Porsche, and so they'll have to be a little bit careful about that.
It's true. I mean, that Mercedes just looks so strong. The type of car that won in the real world in the recent Total Energies 24 Hours of Spa. There are the 2 pole sitters, one behind the other on the grid. Dylan Tan, the outright pole position driver, you can see on the left as you look at the screen, and Filippa Bokida, the silver pole sitter, will start directly behind as the rolling lap, then the formation lap gets underway here.
Yeah, it gets underway here, and I'm still amazed at the fact, by the way, that Filippa doesn't use gloves. That always surprises me, as I very much need to have those whenever I'm strapped into the sim, but clearly it works here for Filippa, and she has been able to take, as we've said multiple times, dominant victories on the season, wins in all 3 rounds.
And don't bet against a 4th. I mean, where is the nearest class opposition? Well, it's going to come from Marco Wong, who is, again, another driver that's been there or thereabouts all season. Marco had a couple of 3rd places, didn't he, to begin the season, Barcelona and then Imola, and 2nd last time out at Bathurst to Filippa Bokida. So if anybody can stop the dominance, Marco Wong could well be the driver.
Yeah, could be. We'll have to see how they go here. Going to be interesting to see, I think, particularly going down into the first corner. As you said, that left-hander going to favor the odd-number drivers here, but it is a very quick corner, and drivers are going to have to be very careful not to end up at the kitty litter there on the outside.
And as the cars now come through this so-called Kleiner Schikane, it's another element where if you get it wrong, you can bounce out wide and cause havoc for those behind. Equally, get a wrong line through that chicane, you're compromising your run up the hill over the brow, and then towards the Villeneuve chicane they go. Dylan Tan in the Mercedes then will go right, then left out of the Villeneuve chicane towards the Telarmen Bocht, and then there's another short straight down towards the Boulderberg Bocht. Boulderberg corner if you prefer, to the little kink, which is the Jochen Rindt curve, and then down towards the last chicane, the Jackie X corner. So Dylan Tan for pole position, and with him at the front of the grid is another of the pros, another of the Porsches, Ferris Stanley for the Rocket Simsport team. Now he's had a 3rd at Imola as his best result of the season. Could go better yet here, certainly qualifying impressively, didn't he?
Yeah, very impressive running there for him, and I think the one thing that he's going to really have to worry about here as they bring their way through Jochen Rindt, as you said, is trying to be able to get themselves up into a double file order here. It's going to be a little bit tricky going down in through Jackie X, and it could give a little bit of an advantage here to Dylan Tan. He obviously has to wait for the green to fly, but nevertheless, a very tricky way to be able to get into that, and it may put some of the drivers on the outside on the back foot.
And you always feel really constrained on this pit straight because you've got barriers either side of you. There's barely any runoff at all, but we are about to go racing then. It is round 4 of the Mobileye G World Challenge Asia Esports Championship. It is Dylan Tan who starts on pole position. It's Ferris Stanley alongside him. It is a 1-hour race. They come up towards the timing line, and it is go as Dylan Tan accelerates away. The Mercedes on pole position makes the best start, moves across the outside line to try to claim the apex for the corner. Marco Wong to the outside of Filippa Bokida's Porsche. They go toe-to-toe into turn 1. Wong gets run out wide up the curb, but track position should come his way. He's on the inside line into turn 2. There, look, number 9, the red and black BMW goes ahead. So Wong takes over the lead in silver. Dylan Tan leads out right, but Marco Wong is ahead in the silver class with a really good pass.
Absolutely brilliant to be able to hold it there around the outside of the first corner and then keep it all together, knowing that that track was going to favor you back to the right-hander. And unless I'm mistaken, this is the first time we have seen Filippo Bokita not lead any segment of the race that didn't include a pit stop.
I think you're right, and so this is a real turn-up for the books, isn't it? And not only is Marco Wong ahead of Filippo Bokita, but he's all now on the attack as far as Ferry Stanley is concerned, because as they come into the Villeneuve chicane, the BMW trying to get away from the Porsche of Bokita and get onto the back of the Rocket Sim Sport Porsche of Ferry Stanley up the road. So Wong in the grunt and go BMW having a really impressive opening lap, all of which, of course, is playing into the hands of Dylan Tan. The other driver to keep an eye to is Andika Maulana in number 889. He has work to do, but he's 14th at the moment, trying to play catch-up for points.
Oh, in contact there in the back, going down into Boldenberg. A couple of cars getting spun around. I think just a little bit of over-eagerness there by a couple of the drivers.
They've survived it just about as the race leaders come through at the end of the opening lap. One of those that's been delayed. There you see Jake Baldwin in the Ferrari that's dropped a long way back, the Happy Laps car. And we've got others that go all over the grass, hiding behind the timing tower. They recover, they get back onto the circuit, but lose momentum as they come over the line. So at the end of lap 1, it is going to be Dylan Tan in the lead. Great little battle going on here involving most of the Laundry House team. 445 is in the midst of all of that. Yet another of those Mercedes AMG. That is Matthew Pignata's car. And the Alfa Venturi Racing entry around the outside there, looking for track position. But he's going to run out of real estate, isn't he, on the outside there?
Yeah, tried to be able to take that momentum line there around the outside to try to get down to the in-time there of Shirakawa, but that didn't play out for him. Lots of moving around here in the order. You saw multiple wide there, 3, almost 4 wide coming down the start-finish straightaway, and Pignata actually getting into a little bit of contact there as well. Lucky that didn't come to fiercer blows.
Now, Maulana had gained a couple of places on that opening lap. He's a bit stuck in 14th right now, as Pignata tries to attack Shirakawa. Ferrari versus Mercedes. This is 24th and 25th, but another long line of cars behind, including the Bentley. Next up, number 97, which is Mitch Hobbs, the Happy Laps entry. And then on the back of him is 281, Ryan Duong with the Baked Potato Racing Audi. And there, as they come through towards the corner of the Jochen Rindt curve, mayhem has kicked off in the background coming out of the Bolderberg box. 3 or 4 cars off the road. Kinlong Lee delayed in all of that, so that's going to shuffle the order yet more as Dylan Tan completes 2 laps and he is 0.8 of a second ahead now.
Yeah, and I wonder if that was contact there with Chan that forced Kinlong Lee all the way around, as it looked like we had a couple of cars spinning off into the distance. But checking back here on Marco Wong, big carnage on the start-finish straightaway.
And that is what I was saying early on about being claustrophobic. There's no runoff at all. You've got barriers on either side of you. Straight away, 1 or 2 drivers withdraw because of the damage. So some survived. There was one car that had been turned around and was facing the wrong way, and that, I think, rather triggered it. We've also got a drive-through penalty for Zach Smith's Aston Martin Vantage, and that was for a jump start, number 25, so he's 6th on the road. As you can see now, Stanley, Wong and Bokita, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, they're running together. But Dylan Tan is away and gone up the road, isn't he?
Yeah, he certainly is. That's Mohammed Leaf off into the grass. There was some pretty heavy damage on that Ferrari, and that is going to be a retirement there for a Leaf, unfortunately.
Oh dear, so Alif out of the race. The lead gap continues to grow. Dylan Tan here up front and looking to try and extend the advantage over Andika Maulana in the championship. Now Maulana has benefited from some of the dramas behind. He's up into 11th place now from 16th on the grid, and remember that you score points in class, so he is going to be 6th in fact in the pro class for points. So 11th doesn't sound that good, but in terms of the points position, 6th makes it feel a whole lot better, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does, and it really is just a matter of holding on to every point possible. As we said earlier, this is a 60-minute race, rather, and anything can happen. Dylan Tan does seem to be in control right now, but there are plenty of areas that this track can just absolutely catch you, and with the added traffic coming in later, you never know what's going to happen.
Absolutely so, but right now a really good effort by Dylan Tan, because he's being able to build that lead and letting everybody else squabble behind him. Zachary Smith has yet to serve that drive-through. Remember, that little orange symbol on the timing tower is to say that you have got your mandatory pit stop still to do. When it goes green, you know that they have completed it, and now it's game on for third and also for the silver lead, isn't it? Marco Wong has got a bit stuck behind Ferris Stanley, and that is enabling Philippa Bokida to come back at him.
Yeah, and I want to give credit there to Philippa Bokida. When Wong originally got that move done, he started to open up the gap there to about 2, 3, almost 4 car lengths, but Philippa Bokida has hung on to the back, really kept it in and not let Wong get away in that number 9 BMW.
It was a good pass by Marco Wong to get the advantage, but you're right, she stayed with him, and Wong is a bit stuck behind Ferris Stanley, so the field comes down now towards the end of the lap. The clock ticks on down, 1 hour, remember, not a set number of laps. You see 33 Chris Sang's Z Challenger Racing Bentley Continental go through, and Philippa Bokida staring at the back still of the BMW of Marco Wong. Third 2 rounds ago, second last time out. The pattern should be a 3-2-1, shouldn't it, for the win? But if he can fend off Philippa Bokida's all-conquering Porsche, he will have done an outstanding job. And now the lead gap is very nearly 2 seconds. Dylan Tan is away and gone as far as Ferris Stanley is concerned.
Yeah, off and into the distance there, setting fastest lap of the race after fastest lap of the race. And I think here for Marco Wong, his strategy needs to be to try to hold ahead of Philippa Bokida for as long as possible into the race. Remember, we mentioned that the Porsche suffers from some pretty severe tire wear, and so if he forces Philippa here to run a little outside of her bounds, maybe try to push the car a little bit more, that BMW should come into more and more favor as the race goes along.
Indeed so, but Philippa Bokida has dropped back a little bit, coming over the brow now, down towards the Villeneuve chicane. So the cars turn through. 326 is Philippa Bokida through the Boulderberg Bocht, and then that little flick through the Jochen Rindt chicane. The Jackie Ickx chicane is next, or you go straight on and dive down the pit lane. And sooner or later, Zachary Smith, who is behind this battle pack, is going to have to do that, and I think he goes in this time because he arrives, yes, I was going to say very, very quickly, but he has gone straight on, so Smith now comes in to serve that penalty.
Yes, and he is going to fall all the way down through the order here as everyone works their way on by. Checking a little bit farther back in the field, this is Sean Madison involved in a pretty close little battle here. Sang right ahead of him as they cross over the start-finish line. Maybe a little bit of a look there in the back for the HPD Yas Pro driver. Was that contact? That was definitely contact.
Sean Madison getting very toey about all of this, but you've got to have a big, strong car to dislodge a Bentley, which has always looked huge. It towers over the Honda, doesn't it? So Chris Sang hanging onto the position. This is the fight for 13th and 14th. It's silver on pro as well. So Sang the silver ahead of Sean Madison, the pro class entry right now. 2 seconds is the lead gap, and this squabble, 13th and 14th, heads towards us with Hugo Osaki next up in another of the Hondas. Husky trying to make good onto the back of Sean Madison. Now look at this for silver honours. Wong has dropped away from Ferris Stanley, and right now he is on the defensive, and Bokida looks as though she is the stronger of the two. Where does the move come? To the outside line, down towards the Boulderberg Bocht. Wide in, tight out might be the go, and Wong has got to make that BMW as wide as possible for 51 more minutes. That's a big ask.
That is a very big ask, but running a very good defensive line both into Boulderberg there and out of the chicane, parking that car on the apex, preventing Bokida from really executing that crossover move. It's heads-up defense here from Wong, but I don't know how long he can be driving in the rear-view mirrors.
No, I'd go along with that. It is virtually impossible, I think, to defend like this for a whole hour, and that's what he's just about got. We've barely done 10 minutes. So right now, Marco Wong leads silver, Philippa Bokida riding shotgun, as it were, on the tail. Ferris Stanley getting away. I just wonder as well whether, now that he doesn't have to defend from those silvers anymore, doesn't have to defend for second place, whether he can bring down the gap to the overall race leader. 2.4 seconds it is. Dylan Tan has done the fastest lap of the race right now as well, but Stanley can now concentrate on attacking rather than having to defend for second place overall.
Yeah, very true, and that gap hasn't grown exponentially as it did over the first couple of laps there, so we could see that come back to play here for Ferris Stanley, maybe running a little bit of a longer run.
And there are other battles lower down the order that need sorting out as well, including Fadli Rahmat with the Tarmac Works Bentley. He, in turn, is just up ahead of Andrew O'Hara in the Laundry House Mercedes AMG, the man that was second in class at Barcelona. So Rachmat a pro, O'Hara a silver, and they're almost together as they close onto the back now of Yatlam Law in another of those BMWs that are going pretty well around here.
Yeah, making up right now 1, 2, 3, 4 of the top 10 as they run. They've got to be said, for all we've been talking about here about the Mercedes, it does look like the BMW that does have a little bit of an advantage here. That car, very easy to be able to lean on. You can really push it through some of the corners. It's slightly understeery, so you're really able to lean on those tires a little bit more, push it through the corners, and it's clearly favoring here around Zolder.
Yeah, and you're right about this Mercedes idea because there's only really one up there, isn't there? Take Dylan Tan out of the mix. Your next best is 8th, which is Andrew O'Hara just going through the shot. So Dylan Tan is perhaps in a way flattering what the Mercedes is capable of around here. You can put a lot of that, therefore, down to his ability.
Yeah, you certainly can. I mean, Dylan Tan, we've seen his outright impressiveness as he runs over the course of the season, and sometimes it's just that meld between the driver and the car. We've talked about Bokita's abilities in the Porsche over the last couple of rounds, and now it looks like Dylan Tan kind of taking that same message and putting it forward here in the Mercedes.
Now, Andrew O'Hara closing onto the back of Fadli Rachmat, who in turn is trying to get onto the tail of Yatlam Law. Just wonder also what Ryan Houlihan might be able to do, because he's 5th overall and 3rd in class. He gave us the Mobileye track guide earlier on, but at the moment he's just within a second of Philippa Bokita. Needs to bring that down before he can have a go as the cars accelerate through once more. The Mobileye BMW running in 5th place. There it is in the background, and look, Bokita has dropped back a couple of lengths from Wong, hasn't she?
Yeah, she certainly has. Not sure if that was a little bit of an error or maybe just a little bit of a strategic decision to try to prevent that potential strategy that we talked about from Wong of making Philippa over-push the car. But one way or the other, it's starting to bring Ryan Houlihan into this mix, and that's probably the last person Philippa wants to see in her rearview mirror.
Yeah, indeed. Although there are two sides to the coin, aren't there? Ryan Houlihan, yes, closing, so it would become a battle for 4th place. Now, Houlihan is a pro, Bokita is a silver. She could afford to let him go, but in so doing, if he can't clear Wong, she's got no chance of getting back at Marco Wong because there's another car between her and her class rival. So it's a tough one to call, really, knowing exactly what to do and who to fight. You've got to pick your battles in a dual class race like this. As you look at Sean Madison hard at work, his battle very definitely right now is with number 21, the car of Luis Moreno, but he can't find a way past him. An incident involving lots of them on the opening lap of the race is going to give the penalty to Ryan Duong. The baked potato Audi is going to have a time penalty for causing the incident. The baked potato car, therefore, has had its chips.
It certainly has, and I've got a sneaking suspicion that that is not going to be the first penalty we see given out for some of those first lap incidents. Multiple times there we saw some drivers coming together, but as we watch Sean Madison here, he is all kinds of aggressive on the back of Moreno right now, really trying to push that number 60 to the limits and trying to find any chink in that Aston Martin's armor.
Indeed so. Sean Madison is just about within striking distance as he comes down towards the Jackie chicane, turns into the left, into the right, ride the curb. Track limit's always a factor around the Zolder circuit, so the drivers have to be very respectful of them. But this pit straight, which a long time ago was the scene of a much televised truck racing accident with the race being stopped and some seeing the flags and others not. There was just nowhere for people to go because you've got the walls on either side. We saw it to a degree early on in the race. Madison closing right up there as they go into the Canal Bocht. Turns 2 and 3, loops you round. There's the river to the left-hand side. Then you go right again through the Lucien Bianchi corner and onto that short back straight towards the little chicane. Good little fight going on lower down. 166. There you can see that is Oscar Lau with the Macau E-Motorsports entered Aston Martin V8 Vantage.
And this is Kobe Chan, one of the drivers that was brought up in that incident a little bit earlier on, coming through Boulderberg. As Sean Madison throwing it all away here.
Madison rotates, and that was coming out of the chicane, maybe a little bit too eager with the throttle. The back of the car broke away. Equally, if you do that having bounced over the curb, the car's light and it doesn't have the grip, and so I fear that was self-induced from Sean Madison. He's got back into the race, but it's going to drop him down a few places, so he didn't get a tap. He certainly, I'm afraid to say, got it wrong of his own. There's also another penalty coming, another drive-through for Shaquille's McLaren, the Gamasala Racing Esport entry, but now Sean Madison is down in 19th place. He's got to do it all over again.
Yeah, he's got to work his way back up through the field, and as we said there, that penalty being given to Shaquille, the number 26. That's a second penalty. Oh, it's track limits is what we're hearing.
And so down the pit lane comes now Madison. Now the pit window is open. So is this a good strategic idea to get the pit stop done? He's fallen back in the pack. So get the pit stop done and then just concentrate on trying to rebuild your race from here on in. Interesting that we've got quite a few people coming in early. We don't often see this, do we? We often see it really coming towards the end of the window. But one or two rolling the dice, coming in early.
Well, I think part of that is, David, is that drivers want to come in and get that clean air. The pack's relatively bunched up right now, so if they're able to come in early, get into that clean air, they may be able to jump a few of those cars later on.
Does make sense, doesn't it, as you look at Ryan Houlihan there, who is falling away once more now. The Philippa Bokida-driven Porsche just up the road. Bokida, in turn, yet to crack Marco Wong's BMW as the field turns through once more then. Dylan Tan is 4 seconds ahead of the rest of them being left behind here, as it is Mercedes, AMG from Porsche, from BMW, Porsche, BMW. Numerically, BMWs are well represented in the top 6. They're leading a class, but they're not leading the race outright.
No, they're not, but they're certainly doing well here up in the front. We'll have to see how everything plays out because, as we've noted multiple times, these cars do change over the course of a race run. Fuel wears down a little bit. That's going to change the weight balance in the car as there's going to be less weight in it with less fuel. Let's see how that plays in it. We've talked about the Porsche's problems there with any of the tire wear, and these drivers will have to factor that in as well.
Indeed so, because we are, with 43 minutes to go, still looking at quite a long part of the race still to run. The game as well, setting the time for the start of this race just before 11 o'clock in the morning local time. So as we go through the race, therefore temperatures should go up as well, and that could have an effect on the tyres. So going back to your earlier point about Philippa Bokida not wanting to stress the rubber too much early on, I think you're right, because you need that tyre life to be there, that longevity for the final part of the race when it could be warmer.
Yeah, you really do, and you want to try to hold on to that as much as possible. Here is Yugo Asaki, though, for the HPD Yas Pro Asia team, trying to take a little bit of a look there on Moreno as we have another penalty being issued yet again for those lap 1 incidents. This is going to go to the number 39 of Yuki Shirakawa.
And that is a 5-second time penalty, which again is going to drop him down the order 14th he runs at the moment. You put these time penalties to be factored in on the pit stops. But 1 or 2 drivers also looking a little bit marginal on their connectivity. Lots of yellow. One that's really struggling looks like Russell Reyes with JMX Phantom Mercedes AMG down in 23rd place, as we're going to be interested to see in a few moments where the pit stop of Sean Madison drops him to 24th. Okay, so the rebuild starts from there. He's fallen back partly because of the spin, partly because of making that very early pit stop. So there goes number 77 through, which is the Pro Class Yugo Ohasuki Honda. Replay of the start here from on board with Dylan Tan. Light to go green, accelerates away, moves to the middle of the road, therefore he's able to swing back to the left and claim the apex. But look at Marco Wong. Braves it out round the outside line there, because that gives him the inside line for the next corner.
Yeah, and let's ride on board with him here as we go. Just times this absolutely perfectly as they roll across the line, gets onto the loud pedal, and as you said, David, just braves it out around the outside, avoids contact there with Philippa Bokida. Bokida gives him just enough room, and Wong knows that by the time they come into the right-hander, it's all in his hands.
So a good pass by Marco Wong, and it has given him the class lead, and he's held it for the best part of 20 minutes now. Philippa Bokida, though, is coming back at him, and look, they've both caught up with Ferris Stanley. Now, Stanley, second overall, second in pro, but he has given away 5 seconds to Dylan Tan. So Dylan Tan, 5 seconds to the good after 20 minutes, just about. That lead is set to grow even more, and now I would think Stanley is going to be on borrowed time here, because you can see the way that Wong and Bokida are going. They are right on the tail of that Porsche.
Yes, they are, and this is kind of a fascinating battle. We're seeing an ebb and flow here, and I don't mean to keep harping on it, but once again, I wonder if that is Ferris Stanley trying to conserve the tires of the Porsche here a little bit, and that's why we've seen him fall back to a pretty large degree to Dylan Tan and into the clutches here of Marco Wong.
It might be, but if he is doing that, he's also risking giving away too much time to the race leader Dylan Tan, who doesn't seem to have any such concerns. Second, third and fourth coming out of the little chicane then over the brow, and Marco Wong now is in this invidious position of trying to attack and defend at the same time. He doesn't need to get past Stanley's drama there. Bokita almost into the back of the BMW. That compromises the exit, and look, she's given away chunks of time.
And David, that is the first time we have seen an error really all season from Philippa Bokita, and now she's got to worry about Ryan Houlihan as they come down into Boulderberg.
Absolutely, so Houlihan now right on the back of the Porsche. Philippa Bokita has got to regroup, go defensive. Trouble is that while she defends, the danger is that she'll be going slower, and therefore that's going to enable Marco Wong to escape up the road. So a double whammy really has now hit Philippa Bokita. She is still fourth, but her race has just changed from attacking to being attacked.
Yes, it certainly has, and you can see there a little bit of conversation with the team there, just kind of muttering out some few things, but she focuses in as they dive down now into turn one. Looks like Houlihan not able to keep up the pressure here through the fast first corner. Let's see how it comes back into the later half of the lap.
Dafa Nabil being given a warning, the BMW driver, for an incident that involved Kobe Chan, another BMW peddler from earlier on. So yeah, Bokita then trying to just calm down, get back into a rhythm. But look, Marco Wong is staying on the back of Ferris Stanley. That Porsche, in the real world, one would start saying may have a problem, because it has given away a huge chunk of time to the overall race leader, and seemingly there's not a great deal that Stanley can do to up his pace. The gap is widening to the leader, and Marco Wong, now that he doesn't about defending, he can purely concentrate on the attack. He's taking the fight to Stanley for second overall.
Yeah, surely is there, and I mean, look at that, 0.6 of a second on that first lap, on that last lap alone, waiting for it to tick back over here to see if more time has been given away. 0.2 there through the first half of the lap. This is not good for Ferris Stanley.
You're right about that. It is good for Wong, but he could ideally do with Bokita still being attacked by Houlihan, and she's not, because I reckon she's getting away. Houlihan is being caught instead by Yat Lam Law. It is a very elasticated situation, isn't it? You look at the cars at one corner and you think you've got a pattern. They come out of a corner and it's all different. Look, Stanley all of a sudden ups the wick, and so he stretches his margin by another couple of lengths over Marco Wong. Where is Philippa Bokita? There she goes, having again pulled away from Ryan Houlihan. Now, part of this is the nature of the circuit with quite a few stop-start corners. Part of it as well is the balance of performance, and you're seeing that perhaps the Porsches work well through the tighter corners. The BMWs, with all that grunt, work well at other parts of the circuit.
Yes, they do, and there we've got another penalty. This one of the most severe that we've seen issued out there. That's going to be to Sean Madison, a 10-second stop-and-go penalty. That undercut strategy that we saw Madison run earlier, not going to be effective.
Yeah, he got involved with the cars of Yat Lam Law and one other, and so the net result of all of that is that the penalty comes for Sean Madison. So he's had a spin anyway, the bite a bit in a way, and that's going to just add to the woes, isn't it? So big dramas for Sean Madison. That drops him yet further down the order. Kin Long Lee, not Yat Lam Law, was the driver that got involved with him. Apologies, the renumbered car of Kin Long Lee, and that was one that was involved in that earlier skirmish. Right now, though, the pit window remains open. We are nudging towards halfway, and Marco Wong continues to lead from Philippa Bokita in silver by only tenths of a second. As you look at Hugo Osaki, hard at work.
Yeah, hard at work there. I'm a little bit surprised we didn't see a poke down to the inside there for Osaki, but still just trying to hound as much as he can behind Moreno.
Look to one side and then the other as they come down towards the chicane. 36 minutes on the clock. Let's look at a replay of the earlier dramas. This was cars getting all involved down towards the Kleiner chicane, and that was Mohamed Alif getting involved with others, and more Ferraris bouncing off the wall. So a real pinch point. Wrong place, wrong time, and he just act like a pinball being bounced from car to wall.
Yeah, exactly. And then, adding insult to injury there, getting sent around going through Villeneuve. Oh, that is a rough lap.
Yeah, that was Jake Baldwin. That's why he was last at the end of the opening lap. Then 445 got roughed up as well. So that was Matthew Pignata. And although he survived it, he did lose ground, trying to get back into the pack. Then he got another hit. So the Mercedes AMG with a magnet in it being whacked from pillar to post. Others had to take to the grass in avoidance there.
Yeah, and you can really see the domino effect in these incidents, that it's just that little bit of contact, but here goes Yugo Asaki. He's going to have a look down to the inside of Villeneuve.
He is. He's got the inside line for the first part, the outside line for the second, the inside for the third. Does the road come back to him? He's going to have a dive now as they make the way into the next right. And he should just about get his nose in front. And again, he's got the right line for the next corner, down towards Boulderberg box. But he gets out-braked, and they're still side by side as right round the outside there goes Luis Moreno. But finally, the Aston Martin has to say enough is enough, because coming out of the corner, Osaki does go through. And finally, the Honda has cracked the Aston. That was great racing between the two.
Oh, bumping and banging there along the way. Osaki just not taking no for an answer, getting his elbows out here. And David, well, you talked about the elasticity of this battle up at the front. Philippa Bokita has caught right back up to the back of Marco Wong, and the battle is on once again for the silver lead.
It is, and I think Wong has got a bit stuck, hasn't he, behind the Ferris Stanley Porsche. He's caught, but he just can't find a way through. And you've seen how brutal, how committed, how forceful you've got to be to make a pass. And maybe Marco Wong has decided that with 34 minutes still to go, it's not really the time to get your elbows out. But he might have to think about that in a minute, because Bokita is getting close, and then she gets stuck. So Houlihan catches up, and yet Lamlore catches up as well. So this battle pack is set to grow and grow.
Yes, it is, and it's just going to get more insane as we continue to go along here. Oh, Bokita very late onto the binders there, down into Boulderberg. I thought that was going to be contact between her and Wong for sure.
So the three cars, second, third and fourth, run together. I'm slightly interested to know why Houlihan has dropped back a little bit, but again, he could just be waiting to see whether it ends in tears ahead of him. He doesn't want to be in the battle, and therefore any potential accident, he wants it to unfold ahead of him.
Yeah, and I think that's a relatively good strategy for Houlihan, but he's got to watch out for Yat Lam Law. He doesn't want to fall back so much that he puts himself in danger there, but I do like the idea of just trying to hold out a little bit and waiting to see what that battle is going to do.
So the race leaders with 33 minutes on the clock. There is another little fight going on lower down. Zachary Smith 20th. Now remember that he has already had to serve his drive-through penalty. So he was running in the leading sextet earlier on, but now Zachary Smith down in 20th. Yet again, he's got work to do, but over half the race in which to do it.
Yes, he does. Has a little bit of a look down to the inside there of Sergei Marinenko in that number 7 Audi up ahead of him for Scuderia Laundry House. The Alpha Venturi racing driver, though, of Smith, trying to see if there's anything to do, but we check back in on this battle that doesn't seem to go away. That was a little bit of a close shave for Marco Wong, taking a big chunking of the curbing.
And also having to go defensive, Sergei Marinenko in the Laundry House Audi. This is not really the battle he wants to be in, is it? Because while you're defending like that, you're going to lose time to the traffic up the road ahead. The next target for him would have been 39, which is Yuki Shirakawa's Ferrari, but that in turn has got a 5-second penalty. So while he's being delayed, he does at least have a lifeline thrown to him by the penalty being applied to Shirakawa.
Yes, he does, and he will know that, and he will definitely keep that in mind. As look at this train. It is stretching now all the way back to Rachmat in the number 62 as they go. Just backing everything up here is Ferris Stanley.
Indeed so. Ferris Stanley is the cork in the bottle, and you get the feeling that sooner or later that cork is going to pop and they're all going to come flooding past him. It's a good defence from Ferris Stanley. Now, just to remind you that Dylan Tan is in this race. I mentioned that because so far ahead is he. He's very nearly in the round of the championship. He is utterly dominant. This is virtually the line of everybody else in the race because they're all queuing up behind Ferris Stanley. There's Wong, Bokida, Houlihan, Law, and then Rachmat. So that takes you all the way down to 7th. And Andrew O'Hara is not exactly that far behind in 8th. There is Dylan Tam, just to remind you what he looks like. Not only is he dominant, not only is he cleared off away from everybody else, but he's also now, DJ, catching up to the back markers.
Yes, he is, and it's going to be interesting to see what the back markers do here. Looks like they're going to be able to get out of the way, make everything nice and clear there for him. Now, the real question that I'm going to have, though, is not necessarily what is going to happen to Dylan Tan, but what's going to happen to Stanley and the rest of that train when they catch them.
Yeah, I get the feeling that as you get towards the end of the race, the commitment from the likes of Wong and Bokida is going to become rather more than it is now. I think they've decided that they can run like this for the moment. There's half the race still to go. They can see what pans out as far as Ferry Stanley's pit stop is concerned. If they're stuck behind him after the pit stops, then they're going to need to think about getting past, because as Rachmat now pits, the potential for Wong is that he's going to be delayed. It could be, of course, that you get a change of lead of Silva on the pit stops, but now Bakita runs a little bit wide coming out of turn 1. But yeah, the further through the race you go, the more committed I think you're going to find Wong and Bakita to get away past him. And look, Filippo Bakita coming now towards the back straight out of the Lucien Bianchi box, much closer to Wong.
Very, very close. Tries to get a little bit of a better angle. It's going to be interesting to see what kind of line Wong decides to run here down into the Klein chicane. Going back to the racing line, Bakita thought about a little bit of a look into the inside, thinks about it again into the braking zone. Is she able to get a better run there out of the corner? No, it doesn't look like it.
So while she is delayed behind the BMW, Ran Houlihan has closed right up. So again here you've got Bakita looking quicker, but then getting stuck behind the defensive Wong. The back of the BMW wags coming out of the chicane. And so now, go back to this elasticity point, Ferry Stanley has been able to get away because Wong has gone defensive. If Bakita starts to have to defend against Houlihan, that will allow Wong to get away. He can catch up to Stanley, but then he gets stuck. Overtaking, as we said pre-race, not easy at all. And every lap, every battle really is graphically proving the point.
Yes, it certainly is, and I think this could very well come down to a battle of pit stops as we see another driver pulling off down into the back of the shot there. It's going to be a battle of pit stops, and it's going to be a battle of traffic management when we get to the end of the race.
Houlihan is in, and Yatlam Law is in as well, so they've got stuck, so they might as well get out of the traffic, roll the dice and see what they can do. So they were the best place of those that make the regulation stop. And now look, Bakita doesn't have to think about defending anymore, concentrating purely now on attacking Marco Wong. So the pressure is off. That releases Filippo Bakita. Now she can have a go at Wong. Is still up front. Dylan Tan in this stellar performance leads by 8 seconds now.
Yes, 8 seconds up away there for Dylan Tan. Bakita again not trying to make that move going down into there. Multiple cars getting some final warnings here. Looks like the number 3, that's Daniel Hunter in the Happy Laps Honda NSX, getting a final warning there given by the stewards.
Indeed so. Dylan Tan then continues to hold sway up front, so this could be a triple win for him in a sense. It would be his 3rd. So Dylan Tan utterly dominant and looking as though this is going to stand him in very good stead for the championship. Now Andika Maulana is up into 7th overall, 3rd in class, but bear in mind that some of that gain of place has been because of other people coming into the pit lane. It's only after the window closes that we'll have a better idea of Maulana's position. He was 6 points back in the championship coming into this race, but he does need a really good result. So Maulana remains one to watch in to see what progress can be made as Wong still leads Bakita over the line. And now Filippo Bakita pulls out, thinks about making the pass and pulls back in again.
And I wonder if that's just a little bit of poking and prodding here to see if she can force Marco Wong into a highly defensive line, maybe see if she can get him to miss the braking zone. That didn't necessarily look like a full-throated attack, but instead just a little bit of trying to see what could happen.
So onto the back straight they come out of the Lucien Bianchi box. Then the pair of them still together. Ferry Stanley has just been able to edge away slightly as they come now down towards the curb. Turn left, turn right. And now Filippo Bakita with a good exit. You see the bit of damage done on the back of Marco Wong's BMW, but he's able to soldier on. Tries to cover off the inside line as they head into the Villeneuve chicane. And you use a massive bite of the curb at all elements of that right, left, right flick.
Yeah, you really do. It takes a real punishment there on the suspension, and thankfully these GT3 cars have plenty of good travel in the suspension to be able to keep them going. Bakita, though, in the middle sector of this track just looks absolutely flawless. It's really here coming out of Boulderberg that it looks like she loses just a little bit of time.
Indeed so, down towards the chicane. And whether Filippo Bakita is going to be able to find a way through, I'll have to wait and see. It could be that she may pass on the pit stops because that's a way of undercutting rather than doing it on the track. But it's interesting for the moment that she is matching exactly what Wong is doing. They're not yet splitting pit strategies, are they? Filippo Bakita has got stuck but isn't yet bailing for the pit lane. Andika Maulana is in this time, however.
Yeah, it looks like a lot of these top leaders are opting for that undercut strategy here. Bokita clearly trying to go for a little bit of an overcut. My big question is going to be is if she is able to pit on a different sequence than Marco Wong, or if that's going to throw her strategy out of the window if they try to take this all the way to the end.
Yeah, and that's what's slightly puzzling me at the moment, because she is a bit stuck. The lap times are being compromised by having the BMW ahead. Why is she not in the pit lane? Why have they not already tried to do something? Or is there a grand plan here to do something in the pit stops that will set the car up for a shorter second stint? Over the curb they come, once more out of that Villeneuve chicane, but on this lap, Wong looks the stronger, doesn't he? And just extending the advantage ever so slightly.
Yeah, just able to pull that ahead. Is here we focus back on the tarmacs work number 62 of Fadil Rakhmat as he tries to be if he can get anything on Sergei Marinenko, looking down to the inside of the Audi. Gonna think better of it.
Indeed so, down towards the chicane. Got to be careful here, of course. And off the road there, I'm afraid, goes the Bentley. So big mistake by Fadli Rashmat. He'd made the pit stop, but now down in 15th place. An error, and that throws him even further down the order as the cars ahead bounce over the curb into the Villeneuve chicane. That makes the suspension creak, rather, but they've got away with it as you've got more penalties being applied. Another one, look to Zach Smith.
Yeah, that's a big one there to Zach Smith. A 15-second penalty applied to him. Having problems all over the place here as we focus here, continue to focus here on Rakhmat, trying to be able to gain it back ahead. And look what I'm just noticing there, David, that Ryan Hulahan looks like he's been able to steal that fastest lap away from Dylan Tan.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because, of course, he's one that's made his pit stop. Now, on the pit stops, he's dropped back behind Andika Maulana. So Maulana, again, in the second part of the race, when everybody has had their pit stops and the order has settled down a little bit, Maulana could be back at the races. So, yeah, curious in a way that Hulahan, yes, has got good pace, probably because he's in clear air, and yet has lost track position to Maulana, who, of course, started 16th on the grid.
Yeah, started 16th on the grid, and they're only going to go up from there. Look at all of those drivers with that gold thing right there, the gold indication. And I think, David, we're going to go back here to check out a replay.
Indeed so. What happened at the start of the race, where we had all sorts of drama. Big whack there. Getting involved in that and being turned around was Kin Long Lee's BMW. It wasn't the only one, as you saw, because he had other cars being tagged. This is all down at the Boulderberg box. And then Kin Long Lee decides just to rejoin and drills people. Now, in a stock car race, I think people would be proud of that, but in a circuit race, that's a bit of a no-no. But the BMW does rejoin, and then this is also how things kicked off coming onto the pit straight. Somewhere in the midst of all of that was Oscar Lau in 166, and then cars bounced off one another into the wall, and you just got pincered, didn't you, up against the barriers. Mohammed Alif being involved in that as well, cars facing the wrong way, but thankfully in a virtual race, you're able to disconnect and withdraw, but even so, as cars came thundering over the line, there was still a lot of contact there.
Yeah, a lot of contact, a lot of blind coming into the corner. We focus back here on the number 60, and oh, that was that self-spin that we saw there for Sean Madison.
Exactly, so that spin and the penalty meant that his chances of a good result were Mortsubit immediately dead, and Wong getting into there. One of the Ferraris, and Marco Wong, having made his pit stop, has dropped back and now delays himself by contact, and that's going to play into the hands of Bokita potentially. They've both made the pit stop. Wong came out ahead, and even with the contact, has been able to hang on to the place.
That must have been an absolutely terrible pit stop there for Philippa Bokita as Marco Wong lost a heaping of time with that problem. My goodness.
Well, Wong had a charmed life there, didn't he? He's been able to hang on in there somehow. But there is Fadli Rakhmat, who is catching up again to the traffic despite his rally crossing of a couple of laps ago. So it is Wong, the best placed of the pit stoppers, as well as hanging on to his lead for the moment within silver. But again, not only were they together on the road, they pitted at the same time. So Philippa Bokita, fascinating strategy this. Whether the team feels it's going to work out in the long run, time will tell. But everything she has done has been matched by Wong, and he is still there in the lead. Well, he's managed to hang on to this lead for half the race. Can he do it for the other half?
That's the real question here, and you know, I've got to really give some credit here to Marco Wong for being able to withstand this pressure, and I'm just not sure why Bokita hasn't been able to get that little bit to be able to get by the number 9. It seems like she's had the speed to be able to get by, just for whatever reason not able to pull up alongside.
Through they turn, Filippa Bokita could be biding her time. Bear in mind that she doesn't gain anything by getting up with Dylan Tan for the overall lead. There's only pride at stake. It's the class points that she's after. But you've got to say that Marco Wong is driving the race of his championship, because he's been under pressure right from turn 1, and yet he's not put a wheel wrong other than that little incident with the back marker that we saw. He is like a sponge here, soaking up the pressure from Filippa Bokita right there behind.
Yeah, just absolutely taking everything that she is able to throw at him here as they go. And David, I think we've actually got a little bit of a closer look at that problem with Marco.
Let's have a look then. So he went diving up the inside of the traffic. Hard to apportion blame there, really, because there was a gap, but I think he was too far back really to commit. By the time he was heading into the corner, the Ferrari had to turn in sooner or later, so it was a little bit clumsy on both parts. But Wong's got to be careful that he doesn't get himself the penalty by that zealotry.
Yeah, he's got to be very careful, and that's not going to be the last piece of lap traffic that he deals with over the course of this race. As you can see, there are a couple of drivers right up in front of him now, as there we see a Ferrari pulling off down into pit lane, but they've got to be very, very careful not to be too eager. That was a little bit of a mistake there from Wong. Could this be the move from Bokita?
Could be, because she's on the outside line and over the timing line. Wong's going to have the line for turn 1, but then Bokita might get the inside line for turn 2. She's going to go right round the outside here. This should be Bokita's place, but no, she gets run out wide over the curb and can't find a way through. And if anything now, that brings the BMW of Kin Long Lee back into the mix as well. So Filippa Bokita tried everything, a really good attack, the first serious attack that we've seen, but she got run out wide over the curb and loses time as a consequence.
Yes, she does. As there we take a look at Ferris Stanley, who's been a big winner of all of this pit stop cycle with a big 3.8-second gap. And that car that you saw spun around there was Sean Madison, from what I'm hearing.
So as they come into the chicane once more, Ferris Stanley now out on his own, thankfully, he might consider. Now, Ferris Stanley is another one that's made a pit stop, so that has given him a much bigger gap over Marco Wong. Interesting, isn't it? After the way the pit stops have panned out and that battle between Wong and Bokita, Stanley is absolutely on his own, having been rather busy fending them off for the first chunk of the race.
Yeah, it's amazing how this can all sort of play out in the course of it, and these pit stops absolutely causing everything around. That's a penalty there being issued for the number 39. Oh my goodness, so that was the incident that we saw with Marco Wong, and that is going to be going out to Yuki Shirakawa.
So life gets worse for him as the Marco Wong BMW then comes over the line. Filippa Bokita still striving to find a way through, but again, closing back up. The time lost of a lap ago, she has been able to bring back down, but not yet in a position to make a move. Yatlam Law still there behind, and then the recovering Fadi Rashmat next in the queue as they turn their way towards the Lucien Bianchi box once more.
Well, and I wonder here if this is going to maybe play into the hands of Fadli Rahmat as they work their way through here. If Yatlam Law is able to be held up a little bit by the battling Wong and Bokita, that could play right into the hands of Rahmat, and he could be able to get his way forward.
That's right. So there is Yatlam Law riding the curbs again, bouncing his way up the hill. Filippa Bokita managing to stay on the tail of Marco Wong, but running out of ideas now because we've only got 70 to go as finally Dylan Tan serves the mandatory pit stop. So he has done 29 laps. He's been out on his own and finally makes the pit stop, this regulation stop that everybody has to make with the window open for just another minute and a half here.
And hits his marks nice and easy there. Going to get that fill up of fuel. Not expecting any sort of tire changes here as we wait for Tan to get out and going, into the surprise of absolutely no one. It looks like he is going to be able to maintain that lead up at the front of the field.
So he blasts his way around the outside of turn 1. This is still the pit exit, and then that blends back onto the road. Be careful not to cross the white line. And come into turn 2 now. So Dylan Tan back on track. He's lost his fastest lap to Ryan Houlihan, as we'd reported earlier on. But what he has done is not only keep the race lead, but he is still in splendid isolation, isn't he? Just nobody around him.
Yeah, the only people he's going to have to deal with up to this point is a little bit of lap traffic that he will have to get himself by. But here comes Bokita again, looking very, very aggressive as they go through Lucien Bianchi.
Indeed so. This is where Bokita's going to challenge once again. Down towards the chicane. Yellow flags are still there, but there's the green flag, meaning now you can overtake. Bokita pulls out, pulls back in again, and Marco Wong is going to have to make this car as wide as possible for another 15.5 minutes. It's been a great drive by Wong thus far, but is he going to come out the hero come the end of the race? Let's see as the field now comes towards the Villeneuve chicane once more. And Philippa Bokita knows that she needs to get on with this, because in turn Yat Lamlaw is closing up and bringing Fadi Rashmat along for company.
Yes, and there was a little bit of a penalty being issued, a warning issued there to Marco Wong for contact with Philippa Bokita. I'm not sure if we saw that, David, but these stewards definitely being careful.
Indeed so. Now let's have a look here at the replay. See the cars, Sean Madison that was, running over the curb, bouncing off the wall and spinning across the circuit. That was all self-induced, sad to say. Ferris Stanley goes through, Marco Wong behind him, 3 seconds behind. Now look, all of a sudden it's Yat Lamlaw on the attack, so Wong has checked out, and Bokita now having to defend from a very determined Yat Lamlaw right there behind.
Yeah, that elasticity of this battle, it looked like there that they came through, maybe not the best run through Jackie Ickx, and I am hearing that that penalty that was issued out, it was the contact down into turn 1 between Wong and Bokita. That is what that warning was given out to.
Okay, so that perhaps the only real blot that we've seen on Marco Wong's drive. Fadi Rashmat, who was off the grass and back onto the tarmac at that chicane a little while ago, has also regrouped and is now running in 6th place. And Rashmat's done a decent job here, having started on the 4th row of the grid. He's been there or thereabouts all race, and he's not done yet, giving a tough time now to Yat Lamlaw.
Yeah, certainly trying to put that pressure to the back. And remember what I said earlier, that this could play into the hands of the number 62 Bentley driver for Tarmac Works, that if that battle pushes Fadli Rachmat back into, or if pushes Yat Lamlaw back into his clutches, this could play out well and give him an opportunity to maybe get 5th away.
Indeed so, down towards the chicane. Fadli Rashmat, again, just not quite close enough. Yat Lamlaw's BMW, good in a straight line. The Porsche does seem to be the slightly more nimble of the cars around here. But the Mercedes that dominates up front, 1st and 7th are your Mercedes. So Dylan Tam is the exception to the general pace of the Mercedes AMGs. So impressive has he been thus far as he turns towards the back straight. 10 seconds he's got in hand over Ferris Stanley in 2nd spot.
Yeah, and 10 seconds is an absolute lifetime around here, around Zolder, and he is going to have plenty of time to be able to piece his way through the lap traffic that we will start to come upon here, but it doesn't look like we've really had any. But Andrew O'Hara doing a good job moving his way up through the field here, and now he's going to be on the back of this train.
Yeah, O'Hara has just chipped away, hasn't he? A 10th here, a 10th there, and gradually has come back into the mix. He's never been that far away, but now it does look as though he might be able to give a pretty hard time to Rashmat before the end, which is only 12 minutes away. So there is Andrew O'Hara, hard at work, staring at the screen, turning his way out of the Villeneuve chicane, speed building towards the completion of the lap as he comes out of the Telamenboch down towards Boulderberg, and O'Hara is inching up onto the tail of that Bentley.
Yeah, inching up behind there, and you noticed a little bit of a later apex there for the Bentley that allows him to carry a little bit more speed here through Jochen Rindt and going down into Jackie Ickx, and that is just what he needed to be able to keep that attack from O'Hara at bay.
So now Rashmat dropping back from Yat Lamlaw. He's on the defensive as they come over the timing once again. And still, with 11.5 minutes, Wong is keeping Bokita behind him. Marco Wong's drive here, I know Dylan Tan has been impressive in its own way, but he's been on his own. He's just had to not make mistakes. Wong, yeah, he has had to make no mistakes, but he's had constant pressure from Philippa Bokita. And as we're nearly 50 minutes through the race, he has done an outstanding job of soaking up all of that pressure.
Yeah, he really has. We've really only seen that one little error that was the contact with the Ferrari coming out of the pit stops, and as we agreed, a little bit of a racing incident there, and the stewards obviously taking the view that it was that Ferrari's fault as he came out, so clearly driving a near-perfect race as a result that he can control.
Indeed so, as you got Yatlam Law's BMW next in that queue. O'Hara dropping back slightly, and another little twitch to the back of Marco Wong's BMW. He's asked a lot out of that car, he's asked a lot out of the tyres, but a class win here, which could, if it happens, bring Filippo Bocchida's 100% strike rate to an end, would be richly deserved. But we know that Marco Wong has been good. 2/3, 1 second, a maiden win could be just 10.5 minutes away, and boy would he deserve this, the way that he's had to cope with all the attack from behind.
Yeah, he certainly would, and let's see, though, is Bocchida able to get that Porsche, as you said earlier, David, a little bit more nimble around the curves. That's where she seems to really be able to come alive, but I've got to wonder here if she's overdriven the car a little bit, if those tires are starting to go away, and if maybe we could be getting into a little bit of a danger zone here where she could start running a little bit wide, just like that.
So Bocchida lost nearly 4 seconds on the pit stop, and she's made it back up. So again, the car's got good pace, but then there's that wall, and the wall effectively is the BMW. So all the time lost in the pits, made back up on the circuit, and then can't get past, stuck, just like she was early on in the race. Drop back, let the tyres recover, push again, apply the pressure. But everything Bocchida has tried thus far, Wong has got the answer to, and in this case, Wong has got the right answer as well. This is his view coming out of the chicane, over the brow now.
Over the brow, and you can crucially see there that rear view camera, and thankfully for him, it's going to be a little bit farther back from Bocchida, but look how she closes down in the braking zones, being a little bit more aggressive with the curbing. I think she's starting to push again here.
Go along with that, indeed, as the Porsche is good through the twiddly bits over another slight crest, down now towards the Boulderberg box, so brake, go down, down, down through the gears, turn in, get the clipping point for the corner, back onto the power. That little flick through the Jochen Rindt box, he can't really overtake there unless somebody makes a mess coming out of Boulderberg, and Filippo Bocchida sitting on the back of the BMW. But you've got to say now, DJ, running out of ideas, because most things she's tried over the course of the race thus far still can't quite find a way up alongside. There was that really serious bit at turn 1, but everything she's tried, Wong's got the answer to.
Yeah, Wong has just got it nailed down, and that bit that she tried coming up through turn 1, a near identical move of what Wong was able to do at the beginning of the race, and it just doesn't seem like here that Porsche has the legs where she needs it. Going down off of the straightaways, it just doesn't seem like she's got the closing speed, indeed losing some time there going through Lucien Bianchi.
I still think that the BMW is better in a straight line and the Porsche is better through the corners. This is where the BMW's power kicks in on that short back straight down towards the chicane. And then you go left and you go right, and you need the momentum up the hill. Bouncing over the curb is Bocchida, and you can see now the energy that's being put in there, because that car is not looking as planted as it did earlier on. If anything, all of that zealotry over the curb means that the gap between Wong and Bocchida has grown, and now she's under attack again from Yatlam Law.
Yes, she is. The BMW from behind now is what she has to worry about. And remember, this is not a battle for class. This is Silver and Pro right now. But Bocchida, if she loses this position, that is pretty much race done and dusted between herself and being able to take the win.
It is indeed, and she's dropping back a little bit. Andrew O'Hara is still on the tail of Rahmat Yatlamlaw in the Waco's flip table entry. Starts to inch back up onto the tail of Filippo Bocchida. Ran Houlihan in that 9th place has got himself ahead of Andika Maulana now. Houlihan is 5th in Pro, so he's dropped back a little bit in terms of the overall situation. Closing on Dafan Nabil as they come over the line, but it is still Wong with 7 minutes to go right now, and he's looking oh so strong up front. Now Bocchida challenges to the inside, couldn't find a way through. That was the next opportunity that she needed, half a gap, and now to the outside line. All of a sudden, this is game on, isn't it?
Yes, it is, and let's see if Bocchida's going to be able to get it done there, going through Lucien Bianchi. It doesn't look like it. She's got to fall back. Is she able to carry more momentum here down into the Klein chicane?
Well, Wong, if he's got any sense, will start to go defensive and try and cover off the inside line. And look, because also now Bocchida is on the attack and got a bit stuck, and Wong's having to go defensive and slowing himself down, that's bringing Yatlamlaw, Fadli Rashmat, Andrew O'Hara into the well. So now Filippo Bocchida who has been the dominant driver in silver all season, is very definitely in a motor race. On the attack, on the defence, as well as the cars stream down towards Boulderberg box, but again just slightly wide up the curb, and the BMW edges away by a length, I would say.
Yeah, just by a little bit as they go, trying to see what is going to be able to happen. It just doesn't look like Bokita's got the legs here as they come down to Boulderberg. That has really bent her Achilles heel over the course of the running.
Yeah, and we've talked already about how if you are going to get past, you've got to be bold, you've got to be committed, and Philippa again is weighing up the opportunities for doing that against what could be the jeopardy of doing it. In other words, getting into an accident and not finishing at all. Is it better to bank second place points rather than be a heroine and go for the class lead? Well, again, she's quick coming out of turn one. You could argue that the Porsche is the quicker car. It's going to be interesting to see their best lap times post-race here, because when she's got clear road, Philippa is very quick. We've seen that. She can easily get onto the back of the BMW, can't find a way past, but it's better to bank the points for second in class than not get any and risk going off the road.
Yeah, exactly. And I've got to think with the lead that she has at the front of the standings right now, that she's probably thinking a little bit more about that. Wong is going to be able to close down, but it's not going to be that big of a gap that she is going to have to defend here. We look back. Oh, but she's still going for it.
Absolutely right. So now, with only 5 minutes on the clock, I suspect the team is saying, right, come on, let's have another push. If she's got fresh tyres on, or tyres that are in a better state than Wong's, then she might be able to use those to her advantage. But again, look, wide, coming out of that previous corner, up the curb, heading towards the dirt, regroups, nose to tail these two, and all of a sudden, Filippa Bokita's effort is not only bringing her closer, but there seems to be more commitment being put into it now. There's a great deal more urgency about the way that car is being driven, and now it certainly belies whether she's thinking about points. It looks like she's after the win, pure and simple.
Yeah, and I think racer's instinct is just starting to kick in here, David, as you try to tell a driver to back off, and sometimes that just doesn't happen. You want to win at all costs.
Absolutely right. So Filippa Bokita, unbeaten this season, is after another win, comes into turn two, then loops into the canal box, the canal to the left-hand side as they accelerate now up towards another right, the Lucien Bianchi box, the road looping its way around onto that short back straight. Zolder, scene of 24-hour races these days, of course, and the electric touring car racing, a very busy Belgian national motor racing scene. And Bokita, down to the chicane, is still staring at the back of Wong's BMW, as she has done for 56.5 minutes, and it's a view she's absolutely sick of.
Yeah, she has got to be so frustrated here at this point, knowing she's got the horses to be able to try to get on by. Takes a little bit of a different line there, going through the Villeneuve chicane as they work their way through Tamerlan right now, trying to see what she can do, losing a little bit of time.
Indeed so, as the two of them arrive now at Boulderberg box, and again Filippa Bokita closes right up there, but Marco Wong's BMW has the advantage, takes the line through the kink at Jochen and up towards the Jackie X chicane, where again you would have to be really bold and dive up the inside, and she closes under braking, but there's just no gap. A good exit might put her back into the mix. 2 3/4 minutes to go. We're looking at about 2 more racing laps, 3 at the most.
Yes, as they cross over the line there, the legs of that BMW start to come into play. Going to be interesting to see what Filippa tries to do. Runs it just to the edge of the track there. Doesn't look like she's close enough, but we've seen her be able to close down during braking, and that's exactly what she does.
So as the two come through that almost piratical black Porsche on the back of the BMW, they're heading now towards the back straight, and again a good exit from that right-hander, but the BMW gets the grunt, gets the run, and stretches the margin by another length or so.
Yeah, just not able to close down here, ticking down to 2 minutes left to go in the race. A little bit off the apex there, it has to be said, and you can see some frustration there for Filippa. That's the first sign we've really seen over the course of the race.
That's right, but again into the chicane, that's where Wong's been occasionally just a little bit more committed to the curve, and the back of the BMW has had the odd wag. He got away with that, so as the cars come through. Now we need to see where Dylan Tan is relative to the clock. There he is, and let's see as he comes up towards the timing line. He's got just under 90 seconds of the race to go. comes up towards the line now, and this should put him onto the last lap. So there's one more lap between him and the checkered flag. There's going to be just one more lap and a bit between Marco Wong and a class winner. Bokita is on the attack, dives into the chicane, but outbrakes herself.
And I've got to say there, David, that reeked a little bit of desperation from Bokita, and look at this, Yat Lam Law now the one on the attack.
Indeed, but he goes to the outside line, down towards turn 1. Can't do it, but this is exactly what Wong needed, because look, suddenly he's got away up the road and Bokita is on the defensive, and that finally takes the pressure off Marco Wong. For me, his is the drive of the race.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. To be able to withstand the pressure of Filippo Bokita, who we know is one of the best drivers in this series, it has been nothing short of exemplary.
Well, finally Rashmat's attacking Yat Lam Law, but Dylan Tan, let's take nothing away from his efforts. He is on target for a third victory of the season. He's edging his way towards the championship. He adds to the points, then just tops up his strike rate, tops up the Tan. Comes down towards the Boulderberg block through the right-hander, checkered flag at the ready. The clock is going to hit 0. He's timed this to perfection, look, because as he gets to the chicane, it's going to be about 0 on the clock. So for Dylan Tan, he will set the car up now. 7 seconds to spare, turns left, turns right, and then accelerates towards the pit straight. And Dylan Tan is going to score his third victory of the season in Pro, and a great drive. Dylan Tan wins at Zolder in the Mobileye GT World Challenge Asia East Championship, and he has absolutely blitzed the opposition. Ferris Stanley is on target for second, and then for third, well, it should be a first victory in silver for Marco Wong. And the BMW, here it comes, up towards the line, does hang on in there. Marco Wong fends off Filippo Bokita. Finally, she's beaten, and Marco Wong does a third, a second, then a win. Championship. And for me, that was just a brilliant drive, because he was constantly having to defend.
A brilliant drive, a brilliant defense, absolutely spectacular. That's not the way to get that move done if you're Zachary Smith, the Alpha Venturi driver, taking to the run off there down for 22nd. But yeah, just absolutely incredible from Marco Wong. I am so excited to be able to talk to our silver class victor.
Well, he absolutely deserved that. I mean, in fairness to Filippo Bokita, she tried everything, never gave up trying. And were you to talk to her, DJ, I reckon she'd probably say, well, I was quicker, but I could never find a way through. Fair point, because she was always able to catch back up. Never quite was the Porsche able to find a gap. She did try, didn't work out for her, but a great drive by Marco Wong. And let's also tip a hat to Ferris Stanley as well, because that for him is his best of the year. He had a third similar, but a second place for him as well. So quite a few drivers here delivering good results. Dylan Tan, however, just mighty. He got the drop at the start and was never headed. And I think you can say that now he has certainly set himself up as the man most likely to win this championship.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there, David. That 6-point gap is certainly going to grow here as we work our way into the final round of Suzuka. Just taking a look back at the running of the race, and really from the drop of the green flag, Tan's victory never in doubt.
No, indeed so. He was looking so strong. And again, as we'd said during the race, that was the only Mercedes AMG that was up there. We were talking about the Porsches and the BMWs battling behind. And the Mercedes take Dylan Tan out of the equation. Andrew O'Hara's 7th, the next best. So that, to me, illustrates how good Dylan Tan is, because he was able to make up for any potential deficiency on his racecraft and his ability.
Yeah, very much so indeed. And Ferris Stanley just absolutely categorizing well on that pit stop strategy, able to move his way forward. And once he got that clean air, able to get out of the clutches of Marco Wong, driving a picture-perfect race.
Absolutely so. Really good drive then by Dylan Tan. And with Andika Maulana struggling, the margin between them is set to extend. There's still one more round to go of the Mobileye GT World Challenge Asia Esports Championship, but after a great drive by Dylan Tan, DJ Clark can have a word with our race winner.
Dylan, I think dominant there doesn't even come close to describe that. From the drop of the green flag, you looked like you just had that one in the bag.
Yeah, I knew I had the pace, so I just stayed safe. Yeah, just stayed safe.
Well, I'm curious, did you have any scary moments with lap traffic coming around? We frankly didn't get a chance to focus on you all that much. I'm wondering if you had any scary moments out there at all.
I I think I had one scary moment at the first chicane where I almost spun, but it's still okay. Like they still controlled the car. Yeah.
Well, you did a great job to be able to bring it home then, and as we look ahead to the next round at Suzuka, the final round, your championship gap is going to grow here. How do you think that final round will go?
I don't really know how the final round will go because anything can happen in motor racing. Yeah, don't really know what can happen.
Well, we wish you all the luck in the world when you get there, and I'm excited to see what you're going to be able to do, Dylan. But anybody you'd like to thank here today?
I would like to thank my team, Legion of Racers and AMG Motorsports. They really helped me a lot, and also my teammates for supporting me.
Well, thank you, and congratulations once again, Dylan. A great, great drive.
Thank you.
All right, that was Dylan Tan, your Pro Class victor here today. And I also think we are going to be able to catch up with our Silver Class victor, Marco Wong, here in just a few seconds as we wait for him to get his headset on and get ready to talk to us here in the booth. And Marco, David and I were saying that was the drive of the race for you out there, fending off constant pressure from Filippo Bocchita.
Yeah, he's too quick for me. That's all I can do is like defend aggressively, but I'm not sure if that's legal or not. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Well, it looks like you did it well. Talk to me about your mentality through the race. I mean, how much were you looking in that rearview mirror trying to keep her at bay, and how much were you just focused on running your own racing line?
No, I focus on my wheel mirror like 99% of the time. But luckily, my friend is with me on Discord, and they track with me, then I feel a bit more relaxed that way. Yeah.
Well, that relaxation certainly helped you out. I've got to ask you, as we go into the final round of Suzuka, do you think you've got a chance at this title, and how do you think that race is going to go?
No, I don't think I have a chance at all because like Philippa is too fast at there. Then I guess I better just finish like top 5 or something. That would be my best hope. Yeah.
Well, when we get there, I know all of us here are very much looking forward to that race, Marco. But as for today, is there anybody you'd like to thank?
I would like to thank you, KOM and Skylar, because they support me on Discord and they set up the car for me. Yeah, that's it.
All right, well, thank you so much, Marco, and congratulations on a Silver Class win here today.
Yeah, cheers.
Well, David, there you had it from our winner and from our Silver Class winner as well. A fantastic race here around Zolder, and I am very, very much looking forward to that championship finale.
You and me both accept that. It does indeed bring the championship to an end, and we've had such good racing. You almost want it to be a 10-round championship, don't we? Not 5. But what's been fascinating for me in that race has not only been to see how Dylan Tan has just been so dominant and made himself with not only that win, but now 3 in the championship, one of the standout drivers, but also how others have improved over the course of the year. And Marco Wong is one that's got better and better and better and richly deserved that class win. And just like we have it in the real world, you see drivers develop, so we're seeing it in the virtual world as well. And more competitive drivers coming through the ranks, and that can only serve as well in terms of even more dramatic racing with one round of this Mobileye championship still to go.
Yes, indeed, and please join us on September 14th for that final round at Suzuka. On behalf of myself, DJ Clark, as well as David Addison, and our directors behind the scenes, Steve Proudly and Mike Yao, it has been an absolute pleasure bringing you the race action here today. And until we see you on the track, thanks for watching.